I'm here where they're searching for little Gus Lamont yet again. Many people are asking the same question. Why have they resumed the search now? Either way, the push to find Gus is back on, and slowly but surely, the details of Gus's family are being pulled into the spotlight. It's understood that Josh only found out that his son was missing after police woke him up at his Balaley North farmhouse hours after Gus had gone missing. Did police get new information, or did senior commanders call off the search?
Being realistic, given the effluxion of time, if he's wandered off somewhere on the property, it's hard to see how a 4-year-old could survive on their own resources for this period.
As the search continues, at the heart of the investigation, a little boy missing who needs to be found.
It's a matter of, we need to find answers for the family. We'll do as best we can to the extent we can, but a line will be in the sand where they're going to say, you know what, we've done everything possible, and this may remain a mystery forever and a day.
Gus Lamont, a 4-year-old who vanished from his family's remote sheep station in South Australia's outback on September 27, 2025. As of today, October 23, 2025, the massive search efforts, covering 95 square kilometers with drones, trackers, and hundreds of volunteers, have yielded absolutely nothing, leaving authorities frustrated and shifting to recovery mode after just 19 days. Meanwhile, Gus's family has remained strikingly silent, offering limited public statements and avoiding media scrutiny, which raises eyebrows in a case this high profile. What could explain this eerie quiet from those closest to him? Is there more to their stoic demeanor than grief? Stay with us as we unpack the chilling details and explore if Gus could still be found alive, or if this mystery is destined to go cold. For the current biggest question, we'll dive into the critical question of whether Gus Lamont, missing for 25 days since September 27, 2025, could still be alive, examining the timeline of his disappearance, the harsh outback environment that challenges survival, and the absence of any trace or body that keeps open the possibility of human intervention.
The only lead police have had over the past 21 days was the discovery of a single footprint found about 500 metres from the homestead. Police say it was a similar boot pattern to what Gus had been wearing. Despite 2 separate searches involving air, ground and water operations across an estimated 470 square kilometres, nothing more has been found.
The official date of the disappearance was September 27, 2025, when Gus, aged 4, was last seen around 8:30 in the morning at the homestead on Oak Park Station, about 43 kilometers south of Yunta. The family reported him missing after failing to locate the boy within the property boundaries. The initial search efforts ran from September 27 to October 3, 2025, involving active operations with the State Emergency Service drones and volunteers who swept the terrain around the homestead but turned up no traces. By October 7, 2025, the search was scaled back following advice from survivability experts, shifting the case to the Missing Persons Investigation section, with estimates indicating low survival odds after 10 days. An expanded search phase occurred from October 13 to 16, 2025, where Task Force Horizon covered an additional 95 square kilometers, but operations were halted due to temperatures exceeding 40 degrees Celsius, marking a total of 19 days from the disappearance to the suspension of ground searches. As of October 20, 2025, it has been 25 days since the disappearance, with no new leads emerging and the case transitioned to a recovery operation for Gus. We have listed all the environmental features from the sources, and unfortunately, it highlights why survival would be difficult for Gus without assistance. However, it should be noted that this is only true for the Gus lost scenario, which is the least popular one. The geographic location is Oak Park Station, a remote outback area in South Australia spanning 8,000 hectares, situated 43 kilometers from the town of Yunta and 100 kilometers from Broken Hill, characterized by vast, uninhabited wilderness with dense bushland and no nearby populations. The terrain and geology include thorny bushes and rugged ground, making movement challenging for a small child, as searches using drones and trackers proved ineffective due to the obstructive landscape. Weather conditions feature extreme heat, with temperatures surpassing 40 degrees Celsius in October, which shortened search efforts and contributed to dehydration risks in a dry, arid environment that diminishes survival chances after just a few days. Sources of water and food are scarce, with a nearby dam about 5.5 kilometers from the homestead, but a small footprint there was ruled out as unrelated, and a 4-year-old would struggle to access viable water independently. Wildlife and hazards are present, including predatory animals, insects, and snakes in the outback, where experts note that young children are vulnerable to accidents or attacks. The overall impact on survival odds is severe, as survivability specialists estimate a child of Gus's age could only endure 3 to 5 days without water or food, underscoring that Gus was immense difficulty surviving without human help. The possibility of survival depends on the hypotheses and their potential. At this time, we got a list as follows: wandering off, mistreatment and filicide, accident, and cover-up. In the wandering off scenario, Gus could have strayed from the homestead into the bush. Another one is the mistreatment and filicide theory, involves potential harm from family members leading to death and disposal. And the last one is the accident and cover-up possibility, suggests an unintended incident like a fall or drowning on the property, followed by concealment to evade responsibility. The way of lost. To precise specific hypotheses for Gus Lamont's disappearance. A scenario that paints one of the bleakest pictures for his safety, as the harsh outback and lack of traces suggest slim chances of survival, yet the absence of him keeps open the faint possibility that he could still be alive with external help. This scenario rules out any criminal involvement, third-party intervention, or attempts to conceal the incident, positing that Gus's disappearance was a tragic accident stemming from a child's natural inclination to explore. The simplicity of this theory aligns with initial police efforts, which focused on sweeping the surrounding area under the belief that Gus wandered away from the front yard, a behavior not uncommon for a young child in a rural setting. Several pieces of evidence support the idea that Gus could have wandered off. At 4 years old, Gus was capable of walking independently, and his curious nature made him prone to being drawn to his surroundings, as described by family members who noted his adventurous yet shy personality. Sources indicate he was last seen playing on a mound of dirt near the homestead, an area with a local vehicle track running through, which could have piqued his interest or led him to follow a path. Comparable cases in Australia reinforce this possibility. For instance, a 4-year-old who vanished in 2021 wandered 3.5 kilometers from her family's tent and survived 18 days before being found alive in Carnarvon. Such cases demonstrate that young children can travel farther than expected, often driven by curiosity or distraction. The absence of physical signs of violence further bolsters this hypothesis. Police found no blood, adult footprints, tire marks, or drag round the homestead, suggesting no immediate evidence of abduction or foul play. In other words, the scene was clean, lacking any tangible proof of a crime, which aligns with the idea that Gus simply strayed away. The terrain around Oak Park Station, a sprawling red landscape with dense bushland and flat, disorienting expanses, supports the plausibility of a child getting lost. Within a few hundred meters from the main house, visibility drops significantly, and the repetitive landscape could easily confuse a 4-year-old, making it impossible for Gus to find his way back. Historical cases of missing children in Australia and beyond provide additional context for the wandering off theory. Cleo Smith's case, mentioned earlier, shows that a young child can survive an extended period in harsh conditions, possibly by finding minimal shelter or resources. Similarly, Casey Hathaway, a 3-year-old from the United States, survived 3 days in a cold, rainy forest in 2019, defying expectations due to his age and the environment. Both examples suggest that children can endure longer than predicted, especially if they stumble upon a water source or a sheltered spot. In Gus's case, the possibility exists that he could have found temporary refuge, such as a small cave or shaded area, though sources note the scarcity of such features in the outback. Another supporting factor is the potential for an unsuspecting passerby to have encountered Gus. The Barrier Highway, relatively close to Oak Park Station, sees occasional traffic from truck drivers and travelers. If Gus wandered toward the highway, someone might have picked him up, unaware of the missing person alert, especially if they did not follow local news. This sub-hypothesis suggests Gus could be safe with someone who has not yet connected him to the high-profile search, keeping the possibility of survival alive despite the lack of direct evidence. However, several factors challenge the likelihood of the wandering off hypothesis. The most significant is the complete absence of any physical trace. Gus, even the smallest clue.
Jason O'Connell, an SES member for 11 years who covered more than 1,200 kilometres as part of the search, told media last week that there was zero evidence the 4-year-old boy is still on the property. After days of hunting for the boy, he and his partner Jen were surprised there were no birds of prey circling overhead, which might have signalled a possible body. No birds of prey means he's not there. It's just wide open land. There's really not much out there, and I'm surprised because we just didn't find anything. He's not on.
Over 3 weeks, search efforts involving police dogs, Aboriginal trackers, drones, thermal imaging, helicopters, and ground-penetrating radar covered more than 470 square kilometers, yet no footprints, clothing items, or even the grey bucket hat Gus was wearing were found. This lack of evidence is unusual for wandering cases, where children typically leave a trail of footprints or discarded items. Police statements emphasize this anomaly, with one officer quoted as saying, "We found absolutely nothing. Not a trace." This absence contrasts with typical lost child scenarios, where some physical evidence like a shoe or a scrap of fabric often surfaces. The extreme weather conditions on September 27, 2025, further undermine the hypothesis. That day saw temperatures between 32 and 34 degrees Celsius, accompanied by strong winds and no accessible water sources nearby. Experts estimate that a child of Gus's age, dressed in a light blue minion t-shirt, light gray pants, and boots, could not survive more than 48 hours without water or shade in such conditions. The prolonged timeline, 25 days as of October 22, 2025, reduces the odds of survival without external help to near zero, as survivability specialists have noted that a 4-year-old's endurance in the outback is limited to 3 to 5 days at most. The absence of signs of wildlife interference adds another layer of doubt. If Gus had been attacked by dingoes or wild dogs, common in the outback, search teams would likely have found torn clothing, bones, or other remains, yet no such evidence emerged. This led police to question whether Gus was ever in the searched areas after the reported time of disappearance, suggesting he might not have wandered far, or at all. The sheer scale of the search effort also casts doubt on the wandering theory. The operation, involving the Australian Defence Force, State Emergency Service, and local volunteers, was one of the largest in recent memory, covering vast tracts of land with advanced technology. A senior ADF official stated, "If he was here, we would have found him," implying that Gus either was not in the searched area or was removed before the search began. This raises the possibility that if Gus did wander off, someone, whether intentionally or not, may have intervened, either taking him away or concealing evidence before authorities arrived. For more detail of human intervention, let's shift our focus to another hypothesis involving Benjamin, a man in his 40s from Western Australia, whose disappearance overlaps with Gus's in ways that have sparked speculation among investigators and the public. At the heart of this theory is the idea that Benjamin represents a human intervention factor, driving a 2006 Hyundai Getz with reported for erratic behavior on the Stewart Highway south of Glendambo, roughly a 2-hour drive from Oak Park Station. He abandoned his vehicle in thick bushland at Wirramina, about 10 kilometers off the highway and 100 kilometers from Gus's family property, on the exact same day, September 27, 2025. This hypothesis suggests he might have accessed the area, abducted Gus, stumbled upon the lost boy, or witnessed an event, leading to a dual disappearance. It excludes family involvement or internal foul play, emphasizing stranger danger in the remote outback setting. One variant posits abduction or removal, where Benjamin, described in reports as having a wild-eyed appearance, could have veered off course or intentionally ventured into rural territory, encountered Gus playing outdoors around 5:00 p.m., and transported him away in the car before ditching it. This could account for the complete lack of Gus's footprints or trail, as the movement would have been swift and vehicular. Another variant considers Benjamin as a witness or unintentional helper, perhaps spotting Gus wandering from the prior wandering off scenario and picking him up, only to suffer an accident or vanish together, keeping Gus in some hidden location. Alternatively, he might have observed another incident, like a family accident, and been eliminated as a result.
What would you do differently from a policing perspective than you did with William? I know it's very difficult to draw the comparisons, but what are some of the things that you would be doing right now?
I think lessons have been learnt with what happened with William. The focus was on looking for a little boy lost, and invariably that ends happily and the child's found. What I'm seeing now and what I'm reading between the lines with what South Australian Police, they're looking at the other possibilities, that there was perhaps intervention.
Drawing from expert input, former Detective Gary Jubilin, who led the William Tyrrell investigation, advises police to examine human intervention beyond simple misadventure or wildlife encounters, stressing that the coincidence with Benjamin demands thorough scrutiny for completeness. Geographically, while the vehicle was 100 kilometers away, the outback allows for rapid travel, and if connected, Gus could have been moved farther than survivability estimates of 3 to 5 days would suggest for a solo trek. Several details lend credence to the notion that Benjamin could be linked, primarily rooted in the precise timing and location overlaps that have fueled media scrutiny. Both vanishings occurred on September 27, 2025, with Benjamin's car left at Wirramina, 100 kilometers from Oak Park Station along the same Stewart Highway direction, aligning exactly with Gus's last sighting at the homestead around 5:00 p.m. Reports have dubbed this a chilling connection and stirred sinister fears, noting Glendambo's proximity as a 2-hour drive from the ranch. Benjamin's suspicious conduct adds weight, as passers-by, including truck drivers, alerted authorities to his erratic driving, described as abnormal with a wild-eyed driver, on the highway south of Glendambo the day before, September 26, 2025, implying an unstable state possibly from intoxication, exhaustion, or malicious intent. There's no clear explanation for why someone from Western Australia was in this isolated region. Parallel search operations for both cases used similar resources like the State Emergency Service, drones, and local trackers, uncovering footprints and tracks but none tied to Benjamin or Gus, reinforcing the concept that both evaporated simultaneously due to some tie. Benjamin's photo was released on SAPOL's Facebook on October 3, 2025, for identification, mirroring efforts for Gus. The absence of foul play evidence in isolation supports this, as police confirmed no violence signs at Benjamin's car or Gus's homestead, leaving room for non-malicious human intervention, such as a helpful pickup. Ongoing public appeals for information on Benjamin imply he might hold key clues. Comparable Australian cases involving stranger abductions bolster the hypothesis, like Cleo Smith in 2021, a 4-year-old taken by a stranger in the outback and found alive after 18 days, where timing coincidences with a nearby unknown person led to breakthroughs. Or William Tyrrell in 2014, with abduction theories centering on strangers, where Jubilin emphasized probing further afield. The potential for accidental aid fits too, as the barrier highway near Wirramina sees truck and tourist traffic. Benjamin might have encountered a wandering Gus without realizing the situation, then disappeared afterward in a vehicle mishap. Counterpoints to this hypothesis are substantial, hinging on the total lack of direct evidence and logistical hurdles that make a connection improbable. Police have repeatedly stated there is no evidence of any link between the two cases, treating them as distinct. No traces of Gus appeared in Benjamin's vehicle area, such as clothing or shared footprints, and no eyewitness accounts placed Benjamin near Oak Park Station. The October 3, 2025, press conference mentioned both but underscore as separate matters. The geographical distance poses a major issue, with Benjamin's car at Wirramina 100 kilometers away, a 2-hour drive, not feasible for a 4-year-old to walk or be quickly transported without leaving some mark, and the vast outback showed no unusual vehicle tracks near the homestead. At Benjamin's scene, searches in the dense bush revealed footprints and tracks, but none led to Benjamin himself or indicated a child's presence. No signs suggested anyone like Gus had been in the car or vicinity. Fabricated rumors and unverified speculation weakened the case further, including circulated AI-generated images of an unfamiliar man carrying a child resembling Benjamin, debunked as fake and not evidentiary. No real eyewitness reports of Gus, with a stranger 100 kilometers from Yunta exist. Benjamin's personal details remain confidential, with no release of his surname, family background, occupation, or reason for being in the area, cited for privacy protection, complicating any verification of ties. Authorities only seek general information without labeling him a suspect. Investigative priorities diverge as well, with Task Force Horizon, established on October 13, 2025, centering solely on Gus, expanding searches based on survivability factors rather than referencing Benjamin. After scanning 95 square kilometers by October 16, 2025, no new clues emerged related to him. In contrast to matching precedents, this differs from Cleo Smith, where an abductor was swiftly identified with vehicle evidence, as here the overlap is merely mounting fears from media, not police-endorsed. The emphasis on other angles, like potential family dynamics or environmental factors, diverts from pursuing Benjamin as a primary lead, underscoring the hypothesis's speculative nature without concrete backing. Expanding on these counterarguments, The operational separation by law enforcement highlights how the Benjamin angle, while intriguing, lacks the substance to elevate it beyond coincidence. CPOL's insistence on no connection stems from exhaustive checks that found no overlapping physical evidence, such as shared tire impressions or biological material, that could tie the sites. The distance factor is compounded by the terrain. Even if Benjamin intended to approach Oak Park Station, navigating the off-road paths without detection in a noticeable vehicle like the Hyundai Getz would be challenging, and reports confirm no unfamiliar cars were spotted by locals or family that day. Searches at the abandonment site focused on Benjamin alone, yielding only unrelated tracks that suggested he might have wandered off independently, perhaps due to a breakdown or personal crisis, without involving a child. The debunking of viral content, like those AI images, serves as a caution against public-driven theories, as fact-checkers have clarified they hold no value and distract from verified leads. By withholding Benjamin's full profile, police avoid fueling unfounded accusations, but this opacity also hinders independent analysis, leaving the hypothesis in limbo. Task Force Horizon's methodology, prioritizing data from drones and survivability experts over cross-case links, indicates a strategic choice to treat Gus's disappearance as isolated, especially after the initial joint press mentions failed to yield tips connecting the two. Unlike cases with rapid resolutions through stranger evidence, the absence here of any digital footprint, like phone pings or CCTV from the highway tying Benjamin closer, further erodes support. Media amplification of the chilling aspect, while drawing parallels to resolved abductions, often overlooks these gaps, creating a narrative that's compelling but unsubstantiated by official findings. Delving deeper into the supportive elements, the erratic driving report provides a behavioral red flag that aligns with profiles in stranger-involved cases, where instability can precede opportunistic acts. Truckers' descriptions of a wild-eyed driver suggest Benjamin was not in a normal state, potentially making him more likely to engage in impulsive behavior, like stopping for a child or deviating from his route. The timing precision. Gus last seen at 5:00 p.m. and Benjamin's car abandoned the same day, creates a window where intersection could occur, especially if Benjamin toured rural roads, seeking help, or with intent. Parallel search similarities extend to resource allocation, with both employing indigenous trackers who excel in outback conditions, yet their failure to find either person implies a shared external factor, removing them from the area. Public appeals for Benjamin, ongoing as of October 22, 2025, keep the door open for tips that might reveal a connection, such as someone recalling seeing his car near Yunta. Cleo Smith's recovery after a stranger's involvement in a remote setting mirrors this potential, where initial coincidences with an unknown vehicle led to arrests. William Tyrrell's ongoing probe, with Jubilant's call for broader human intervention checks, echoes the need to not dismiss Benjamin outright. The highway's traffic flow supports accidental scenarios, where Benjamin might have picked up Gus thinking he was lost, only to face his own mishap later, explaining the dual mysteries without direct malice. On the opposing side, the lack of eyewitness corroboration is stark, with no reports from the sparse outback population placing Benjamin or his vehicle anywhere near the property, despite the family's awareness of local traffic. The 100-kilometer gap, while drivable, would require precise timing and luck to avoid detection, and police forensics on the car found no child-related items like toys or fibers. Fabricated narratives, including those AI depictions, have been systematically dismissed by fact-checkers, highlighting how speculation can overshadow facts. Privacy protections around Benjamin's details, while ethical, limit cross-verification. But police's choice not to pursue him as a person of interest suggests internal reviews found no merit. Task Force Horizon's independent focus, post the 95-square-kilometer sweep, prioritizes Gus-specific data like weather patterns and terrain analysis over hypothetical links. This divergence from media-driven parallels to other cases underscores that while intriguing, the Benjamin hypothesis remains on the periphery, unsupported by tangible evidence. The rage and the death. Stepping away from the wandering off theories, let's move into the far more plausible ones, the ones that lead straight back to the Lamont family. Among these possibilities, we turn our attention to the hypothesis that Gus was mistreated and killed within the family circle, a theory that sparked the most controversy among those following the case. At its core, this scenario suggests Gus didn't wander off, but was killed in the family home or nearby, possibly from a sudden outburst of violence, excessive discipline gone wrong, or a conflict that escalated to fatal levels. Afterward, family members staged the scene to make it look like a natural disappearance in the outback, covering their tracks to shift suspicion away from the household. The narrative that the grandfather last saw Gus playing outside before he vanished could be a fabricated cover to mislead investigators, painting a picture of an innocent mishap rather than something deliberate and close to home. This hypothesis emerged from several key factors that raised red flags during the investigation. The massive search efforts, involving hundreds of volunteers, drones, and specialist teams, yielded absolutely nothing: no footprints, clothing, or any sign of Gus, leading some to question if he ever left the immediate area around the house at all. Inconsistencies in family statements about timelines and locations fueled doubts, hinting at a coordinated story rather than genuine recollections. It's a pattern we've seen in numerous domestic homicides disguised as disappearances, where the lack of external evidence points inward, forcing authorities to scrutinize those closest to the victim. Digging into the signs that bolster this theory, we start with the discrepancies in family accounts that didn't add up under scrutiny. Gus's mother stated she was inside the house, cleaning and preparing dinner, but police records show the missing report came after 1600 p.m., about 45 minutes later than her claim of stepping out to search right after noticing he was gone. The grandmother mentioned turning her back for just 10 minutes while Gus played, yet neighbors 2 kilometers away reported no one calling out his name or showing signs of searching during that window. These mismatches prompted police to suspect the timeline had been deliberately altered to buy time or align stories. Another red flag was the unusual cleaning activity right after the disappearance was reported. Forensic teams noted certain areas of the floor and sheep pens had been pressure washed shortly after officers arrived on the scene. When questioned, the grandmother explained it as an effort to chase away flies, but investigators flagged it as potential contamination of the site, suggesting an attempt to erase traces like blood, fibers, or other evidence before a thorough examination could begin. In true crime cases like this, such actions often indicate a frantic cover-up, where everyday explanations mask something more sinister. The absence of any evidence of initial frantic search by the family in those critical first 2 hours also stands out. Typically, in child disappearances, relatives panic, running around, shouting names, and leaving overlapping footprints or disturbed ground. Here, search teams described the area as pristine and undisturbed, with no signs of recent activity beyond what was expected. This led investigators to doubt the claim of searching for an hour before calling police, implying the story might have been invented to fill a gap in the narrative. Family tensions and a history of conflicts add another layer to this hypothesis. Local sources, including reports from ABC Adelaide and discussions in the Yunta Community Forum, highlighted disputes over custody between Gus's biological father and the maternal grandparents. The father, who didn't live with them, had filed for full-time care, pointing to ongoing friction that could have boiled over under stress. Police conducted separate interviews with each family member, zeroing in on the morning and afternoon leading up to the disappearance, probing for cracks in their accounts that might reveal mistreatment or a fatal incident. The family's emotional responses, or lack thereof, during media interactions further fueled speculation. Neither the mother nor grandmother appeared publicly throughout most of the search, except for one brief press conference where they read from prepared statements. Their delivery was flat, with no tears or visible distress, prompting comparisons to Rebecca Haro in the baby Emanuel case, who staged a kidnapping after mistreating her child. Locals remarked that it felt rehearsed, like a performance rather than raw grief. This demeanor fits patterns of reactive violence, where a loss of control leads to a deadly outcome, followed by post-event rationalization, crafting a believable story to avoid accountability. In these situations, perpetrators often convince themselves that without Gus' appearance, there's no crime, living in a mix of guilt and fear, while maintaining an outward image of a grieving family. True crime history shows that internal offenders rarely confess unless confronted with irrefutable physical evidence, holding out until the pressure becomes unbearable. We've seen this in cases where initial denials crumble only after forensic breakthroughs, but here, the remote setting might have allowed for effective concealment, keeping the truth buried. Expanding on the custody disputes, the father's push for full guardianship stemmed from concerns about the environment at the grandparents' place, though details remain sparse in public records. Interviews revealed he had visited sporadically, and tensions escalated in the months prior, with arguments over Gus's upbringing. This backdrop suggests mistreatment could have built up, culminating in an impulsive act that family members then scrambled to hide. The pressure washing incident, for instance, wasn't just casual. It targeted specific spots that could have held clues, like the pens where animals might have obscured evidence if something happened there. The pristine search area ties back to this, as if no one had truly calmed the grounds in panic. Instead, the family might have used that time to dispose of any signs, perhaps burying or relocating remains before alerting authorities. Emotional flatness in statements echoes other cases where guilt suppresses natural reactions, making the family appear detached. Rebecca Haro's composed facade cracked only under interrogation, much like how this theory posits the family's unity as a shield against scrutiny. Overall, while controversial, these elements weave a narrative of internal mistreatment escalating to tragedy, with staging to deflect blame outward. The lack of breakthroughs keeps it alive in discussions, as investigators continue probing for inconsistencies that could unravel the facade. The past. Back to the past, we kick off this comparison by reiterating that the absence of foul play evidence from Sepul and Gus's situation, combined with no traces after sweeping 95 square kilometers, hints at a possible cover-up, much like in cases where families stage disappearances to hide accidents or mistreatment involving children. We're drawing parallels to Emanuel Haro, where the cover-up unraveled quickly due to confessions, and JonBenét Ramsey, where it dragged on because of influence, to break down how deceptions get exposed or linger. Diving into the Emanuel Haro case, we list out every detail from the sources on its background, including the timeline and circumstances. The official disappearance date was August 14, 2025, when Emanuel Haro, a 7-month-old baby, was reported missing in Cabazon, California, after parents Jake Mitchell Haro, born February 9, 1993, and Rebecca Haro claimed he was kidnapped from a stroller in a Walmart parking lot. Jake described seeing a vague suspect, a man in black clothing, but security cameras didn't match up. Riverside County Police launched an immediate large-scale search using drones, K-9 units and volunteers, scanning the surrounding area, but finding no signs of Emanuel whatsoever. 2 days later, on August 16, 2025, the parents were arrested due to inconsistencies in their statements. Jake kept altering details about the kidnapper, while Rebecca's account of being at home had timing gaps. No eyewitnesses corroborated the abduction, and polygraph tests showed deception indicators. The case shifted to a homicide probe, focusing on forensics at the parents' home, where they looked for blood traces and other evidence. No body was found, but authorities suspected a cover-up from the start. Fast forward to October 16, 2025, Jake Haro entered a guilty plea without any deal to second-degree murder, causing death, and filing a false emergency report for the fake kidnapping claim. He admitted to hit Emanuel because the baby was crying, leading to death, then dumping it in a nearby trash bin. Sentencing is set for November 3, 2025, potentially life in prison. Rebecca Haro, the mother, faces similar charges: murder, child endangerment, and false reporting, but hasn't pleaded yet. Her preliminary hearing is scheduled for November 3, 2025. Posts indicate attorneys are negotiating a plea agreement for both, but Jake went ahead without one, which might impact Rebecca's case. The search remains ongoing, no remains turned up despite checking trash bins and nearby spots, and the case is treated as homicide based solely on the confession. The family background shows the parents lived in Cabazon with no public history of violence prior, but statements suggest internal stress, like Jake losing control over the baby's crying. Shifting to the cover-up and how it fell apart in Emanuel's case, we outline all the details from sources on the deception and exposure process. The parents staged a kidnapping to mask internal mistreatment. Jake confessed to hitting Emanuel's head fatally, then disposing in trash to dodge suspicion. They initially reported it as an abduction from Walmart, complete with a fabricated suspect description, to divert searches away from home. The unraveling happened swiftly, exposed after just 2 days through conflicting statements. Jake changed kidnapper details repeatedly, and Rebecca's location claims didn't align. Without eyewitnesses and with Walmart cameras contradicting them, police employed polygraphs and separate interrogations, prompting Jake's confession without a deal, as seen in YouTube footage. Home forensics uncovered blood traces and evidence, bolstered by the false report charge. The total span from disappearance to arrest was 2 days, and to plea 2 months. Key exposure factors included interrogation pressure, Jake cried during his plea, per YouTube clips, and the lack of a deal signaling strong evidence, with the DA emphasizing justice for Emanuel. Rebecca might follow with a similar plea if negotiations succeed, as noted in posts. When stacking this against Gus Lamont's situation, we highlight all the comparison details from sources, zeroing in on similarities and differences. Both involve young children vanishing abruptly, initially framed as kidnapping or wandering. Emanuel's as an abduction from Walmart, Gus's as straying from the homestead. Physical traces are absent in each, no body for Emanuel, no footprints for Gus after 95 square kilometers scanned. Family statements clash in both. Emanuel's timeline inconsistencies mirror Gus's doubts around the last sighting and self-search claims. Reporting delays appear 2 hours after the event, Gus's after 3 hours of alleged searching. If a cover-up exists in Gus from mistreatment or accident, it could crack similarly through interrogations and home forensics. Sources point to these parallels in how initial narratives deflect outward, but crumble under scrutiny. Differences stand out though. Emanuel exposed rapidly with a 2-day arrest and 2-month plea. Aided by an urban environment with Walmart cameras and direct confession, Gus lingers open after 25 days in the outback, harder to locate remains than a trash bin. Emanuel features a guilty plea. Gus has no foul play evidence, and the family hasn't been arrested. Applying this to Gus. If covering up from the mistreatment killing hypothesis, Task Force Horizon might unearth it via deepened statements or homestead traces, akin to Emanuel, but without confession, the terrain could prolong it. Gary Jubilin's advice through Daily Mail stresses probing such interventions, while Riverside DA parallels underscore confession's role. To flesh this out further, the Emanuel cover-up relied on a simple abduction tale. But the quick police pivot to homicide came from those early statement gaps. Rebecca initially said she was home, but timelines shifted when pressed. Jake's changing suspect description, from vague to more detailed than back, flagged deception immediately, leading to polygraphs that failed. The home search yielded subtle but damning forensics, like potential blood residue, tying into the false report that sealed charges. In contrast, Gus's family accounts of the last sighting at 5:00 p.m. an hour-long search before calling don't have camera contradictions. But the pristine scene without frantic footprints echoes Emanuel's lack of external evidence. If Gus involves staging, the outback's vastness offers better concealment than a trash bin, potentially delaying exposure unlike Emanuel's urban setup. Jake's no-deal plea, driven by overwhelming pressure and perhaps guilt, as captured in court videos where he broke down, highlights how interrogations break walls, something Task Force Horizon could apply if inconsistencies mount. Rebecca's pending hearing adds uncertainty, with discussions suggesting her deal hinges on Jake's outcome, mirroring how family unity in cover-ups fractures under separate scrutiny. Overall, these elements underscore Emanuel as a blueprint for rapid unraveling, offering a lens for what might unfold in Gus if internal factors prove key. Move on to a more famous case, the JonBenét Ramsey case, pulling together every detail from the sources on its background, including the timeline and circumstances. The official disappearance date was December 26, 1996, when JonBenét Ramsey, a 6-year-old beauty pageant contestant, was reported missing from her home in Boulder, Colorado, with a fabricated ransom note demanding $118,000, exactly matching her father John Ramsey's work bonus. She was discovered 8 hours later in the house basement, dead from head trauma and strangulation, showing signs of staging like the note written on household paper with a family pen. Boulder Police Department launched a homicide investigation, initially suspecting the family, Father John, Mother Patsy, and Brother Burke, due to the note's inconsistencies and lack of forced entry. From 1997 to 1999, the initial probe and grand jury phase revealed no clear intruder traces at first, but DNA from an unknown male was found on her underwear and under her fingernails. The grand jury in 1999 recommended indicting the parents for child mistreatment resulting in death and being accessories, but District Attorney Alex Hunter declined to prosecute, citing insufficient evidence. Moving into the 2000s, DNA advancements and lawsuits marked updates. In 2008, DA Mary Lacey exonerated the family based on touch DNA matching an unknown male, though this faced heavy criticism for being premature. John Ramsey sued media outlets including CBS for a 2016 series suggesting Burke's involvement, winning a $750 million settlement. Patsy died in 2006 from ovarian cancer. Recent updates from 2024 to 2025 include Boulder PD's statement on November 26, 2024, following the Netflix documentary Cold Case of JonBenét Ramsey, released November 25, 2024, confirming collaboration with CBI and FBI to retest dozens of items for DNA using genetic genealogy. John Ramsey, now 81, has pushed for Colorado legislation allowing victims to review cold cases, expressing hope the case is within reach resolution according to briefed investigators on December 2, 2024. At CrimeCon 2025 on September 6, 2025, John shared newly uncovered DNA evidence, but the case remains unsolved. CBI retested unspecified items in September 2025, and John called for more testing in a January 28, 2025 interview. The case stays open with no new arrests. The family background features John Ramsey as CEO of Access Graphics, a wealthy executive, Patsy as a former beauty queen, living in a large Boulder home. They had political connections like ties to Colorado's governor and hired top lawyers and PR firms. No public history of violence, but suspicions centered on inter-family dynamics, such as Patsy possibly striking JonBenét over bedwetting or Burke's potential role. We detail all aspects from sources on the cover-up and its partial exposure in the JonBenét case, emphasizing how it dragged on due to power. The cover-up scenario involves the family staging a ransom note and reporting a kidnapping to conceal an accident or internal mistreatment. Suspicions point to Patsy hitting JonBenét over bedwetting, then arranging the scene with a note handwritten by Patsy. The note matched Patsy's handwriting, and the family called friends before police, delaying official response by an hour. The grand jury suspected accessory to cover up. It was partially exposed early through the fake note written on home paper, unknown DNA, but the family was exonerated in 2008. The grand jury's 1999 charge recommendations were rejected by the DA, criticized as warped by money and power. The case has remained unsolved for 29 years due to influence. John's lawsuits won against media, and he pushed for 2025 laws, despite new DNA testing in 2025 using genetic genealogy on items. Investigators noted progress being made in December 2024, but no arrests stem from lacking conclusive evidence. Factors prolonging it through power include John's wealth as CEO funding top defense like Linwood PR teams and lobbying with political figures, creating media bias and a media circus. The grand jury process was derailed from the outset by influence, as sources describe. We list all comparison details from sources with Gus Lamont, keeping similarities brief and focusing on the unsolved outcome due to power as unlikely for Gus but noteworthy. Cover-up similarities in both cases with young children vanishing suddenly, initially reported as kidnapping or wandering, JonBenét's with a ransom note, Gus's is straying off. Initial lack of traces, JonBenét had no clear intruder evidence, Gus no footprints after 95 square kilometers. Family reporting delays and suspected staging, JonBenét involved calling friends first, Gus a 3-hour search before alerting. If covering up in Gus, it might extend but not like JonBenét due to absent wealth. Differences and emphasis on power show JonBenét unsolved for 29 years through money and influence. John hired lawyers and PR, swayed the DA to reject indictment, won media lawsuits, and influenced 2025 laws for favorable rulings like the 2008 exoneration and ongoing reviews. Gus is unlikely to see such an outcome. Family lacks reaches or clout. Outback forensics could expose quicker, but it's worth noting because if any influence intervenes, the case could linger open long-term despite evidence. Applying to Gus, if from mistreatment, it might unravel faster than Emanuel without power, but JonBenét suggests intervention could prolong it, a result hard to replicate in Gus yet important to monitor via Task Force Horizon. To expand on the JonBenét cover-up narrative, the ransom note was 3 pages long, written on a notepad from the kitchen with a pen from the house, demanding the exact amount of John's bonus, which experts called too specific for a stranger. Patsy's 9/11 call mentioned finding the note but not checking the whole house, and when police arrived, friends were already there contaminating a scene. John had called them over, delaying a secure perimeter. Burke, then 9, was interviewed and said he stayed in bed, but later accounts varied. The basement discovery came when John carried JonBenét upstairs, touching evidence. Grand jury testimony, leak later showed Patsy denied writing the note, but handwriting analysis matched samples from her. John claimed an intruder entered through a broken window, but no footprints in snow outside, and the window web undisturbed contradicted this. The 2000 exoneration by DA Lacey relied on touch DNA from manufacturing, criticized as flawed by FBI experts. John's 2016 lawsuit against CBS alleged the series defamed Burke by suggesting he hit JonBenét with a flashlight over pineapple, settled out of court for undisclosed millions, showing legal muscle. In 2025 interviews, John detailed pushing for genetic genealogy, saying labs identified new profiles but Boulder PD was slow to act, using his platform at CrimeCon to rally support. Sources describe how early D. Hunter's office leaked to tabloids favorably for the Ramseys, tied to political donations. This web of influence kept charges at bay, with critics like Detective Steve Thomas resigning in protest, calling it a compromised probe due to the family's status. The plan of cover-up. Based on the information available, let's start with a more moral hypothesis that an accident within the fandom with an attempt to cover it up might make more sense than something intentional. Moreover, such a scenario has played out before, and that's the William Tyrrell case. We begin by laying out every detail from the sources on the background of the William Tyrrell disappearance, including the timeline and circumstances. The official disappearance date was September 12, 2014, when William Tyrrell, a 3-year-old boy, vanished from Kendal in New South Wales, Australia, while playing in the front yard of his foster grandmother's home. New South Wales police launched an immediate large-scale search involving the State Emergency Service, drones, and K9 units, sweeping the surrounding bushland but finding no traces at all, no footprints, no clothing, and no Spider-Man hat the boy was wearing. The case shifted to a homicide investigation in 2015, with a $1 million reward from the New South Wales government that remains active in 2025. The inquest began in 2019, extended due to COVID delays and new updates in 2024-2025, focusing on the foster parents identified only as SDS to protect anonymity, who have been suspected but never charged. Updates in 2025 include support from the CBI and FBI for retesting DNA samples, but no breakthroughs have emerged. A fresh lead in October 25 involved a Spider-Man suit found nearby, but it was ruled out because it was a different brand and material from William's. The main timeline runs like this. On September 12, 2014, William went missing around 10:30 a.m. His foster mother reported hearing a roar sound like a game, then silence. From 2014 to 2015, searches covered 1,000 hectares without results, leading to the homicide classification. Between 2019 and 2021, the inquest heard testimonies suspecting the foster mother of hiding the body. In 2024, the inquiry suggesting William died from a fall off the balcony, which the foster mother denied. In 2025, the foster mother's conviction for assaulting another child was overturned in May, and the October Spider-Man suit lead was dismissed. The family background shows William had been in foster care since 7 months old due to his biological parents' substance issues. The foster parents were affluent, living in Sydney but visiting Kendall at the time. No public history of violence existed, but the inquest revealed tensions, including the foster mother once slapping another child in her care. Evidence points to Strike Force Rosen managing the police effort, with the inquest led by Deputy State Coroner Harriet Graham, who heard 24 testimony on the accidental fall theory. We move to the hypothesis of an accident and cover-up in the William case, detailing the description from sources. William encountered an accident, such as falling from the balcony or during play leading to death, after which the foster family hid the body to avoid scrutiny from child services. Police suggested at the 2024 inquest that William fell from the balcony at the grandmother's house, and the foster mother hid him in nearby bushland or in a vehicle, staging it as a wander-off scenario. No direct evidence exists, but it's based on the complete lack of traces after massive searches and inconsistencies in statements, like the foster mother altering the timeline of the roar sound she heard. The reasons this theory formed include no intruder or abduction signs after 11 years and 0 findings from 1,000 hectares searched. The inquest heard from a forensic expert that he could have been hidden nearby without detection. The foster mother denied it tearfully in court, but police believe the cover-up stemmed from fear of losing custody of other children. Variants include an accident during play, like falling from a tree or hitting his head, or mistreatment escalating to an accidental fatality. Disposal methods speculated as burial or moving the body far away, with police searching the car boot and property for clues. The 2025 Spider-Man suit lead, found near Kendall, was ruled out but strengthened the cover-up idea since it didn't match the brand of William's suit. Evidence includes Detective Sergeant Laura Beacroft's 2024 testimony, "We believe accidental death and disposal." No charges due to the absence of a body, but the inquest recommended further probes, with 2025 updates showing no arrests. We cover the points of similarity with the Gus Lamont case briefly, as the focus remains on William. Both involve young children disappearing suddenly in rural Australia, initially framed as wandering off but shifting to accident and cover-up due to no traces found. In William's situation, there were no footprints after large searches, with suspicions the foster family hid the body. Gus shows a similar lack of traces after 95 square kilometers, potentially an accident at the homestead that's been concealed. Differences include William unsolved for 11 years due to the complex foster system, Gus only 25 days old, with the outback making it harder. The comparison table breaks it down for age and disappearance. William was 3 in September 2014, Gus 4 in September 2025. Initial hypothesis wander off in the yard for William, from the homestead for Gus. Theory accident fall and body hidden for William, accident and concealment suspected for Gus. Searches 1,000 hectares failed for William, 95 square kilometers failed for Gus. Updates inquest 2040-25 with DNA for William, Task Force Horizon 2025 for Gus. The applicability suggests if Gus follows an accident and cover-up path, it could linger like William without a body, but Gus lacks the foster complexity, making exposure easier. It's noteworthy to track parallels from the inquest. We summarize the quick analysis and what's ahead, sticking to the facts on William as the core. The accident and cover-up hypothesis has kept William's case open for 11 years, with 2025 updates centering on DNA retesting and the inquest but no breakthroughs due to missing evidence. Compared to Gus, it suggests if similar digging into family statements early is key. We'll update if CBI or FBI brings new developments. Follow the channel for the next part. To expand on the William Tyrrell timeline with full details, the day of disappearance unfolded like this. William was at his foster grandmother's home in Kendall, playing hide and seek in his Spider-Man suit around 10:30 a.m. His foster mother, SD, reported hearing him roar like a tiger. Then silence. She searched the yard, called neighbors, and alerted police by 10:56 a.m. Initial response involved local police, but by afternoon S joined for door-to-door checks. Over the next days, searches expanded to bushland, dams, and rivers using divers and helicopters, covering hundreds of hectares but yielding nothing, no scent for dogs, no CCTV from the quiet street. By 2015, Strike Force rose into his homicide, interviewing over 1,000 people and following leads like a white car seen nearby. The inquest in 2019 heard from the foster mother, who described William as energetic but denied any accident. Witnesses noted her calm demeanor, raising brows. Delays from COVID pushed sessions to 2021, where experts testified on decomposition rates in bushland, suggesting a body could decompose undetected. The 2024 resumption brought Detective Beecroft's testimony, outlining the balcony fall theory, William climbing railing, falling headfirst instantly, then the foster mother panicking and hiding him to avoid child protection removal of her other foster kids. She denied it, saying, "I would never harm him." But police pointed to her Google searches on child falls from height, post-disappearance, though defense argued coincidence. The foster father's statement aligned, but inconsistencies in their recall of the roar timing, first 5 minutes, later 10, fueled doubts. In May 2025, the foster mother's conviction for assaulting another foster child, intimidation and slap, was overturned on appeal, citing procedural errors, but it spotlighted family tensions. The October 2025 Spider-Man suit discovery came from a tip-off. Found buried near a road 20 minutes from Kendall, police tested for DNA but confirmed different fabric and label, ruling it out as a hoax or unrelated. FBI involvement in 2025 focused on genetic genealogy from unknown fibers on William's clothes, but no matches yet. The reward, bumped to $1 million in 2017, drew false tips like a 2021 claim of seeing William alive in Mexico, debunked quickly. Delving into the accident hypothesis details, police built it from scene reconstruction. The balcony at the grandmother's house was 1.5 meters high. Accessible from the yard where William played, experts calculated a fall could cause fatal trauma without blood if internal. The foster mother allegedly moved the body to bushland 500 meters away, using a blanket or bag, then returned to stage the wander-off by calling out his name falsely. Inquest transcripts from 2024 quote a neighbor hearing no calls until police arrived, contradicting her claim of immediate search. Variants include William hitting his head on concrete during play or a swing accident, with mistreatment as a trigger, perhaps rough handling escalating. Disposal theories range from shallow burial to driving the body to Sydney dump sites, as police traced the foster parents' car movements that day, noting a 4-hour gap unexplained. The Spider-Man suit lead in October 2025 involved a hiker finding it partially buried. Lab tests showed no DNA match to William, and the brand was Marvel vs. his Disney version, but it reignited media on cover-up, as police said. Shows how tips can mislead, but we check all. Beecroft's testimony detailed, "We have phone records showing distress calls to friends before police," hinting at panic cover. No charges stick without a body, as Coroner Graham noted in 2024. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, recommending NSW police pursue disposal leads. The foster parents' affluence allowed top lawyers, delaying inquest with appeals, but tensions revealed include the mother's 2021 audio recording admitting, "I lose my temper," from a separate child case. On the similarity side, keeping it concise, the rural settings and initial wander theories align, with massive failed searches pointing to hidden bodies nearby. William's no traces after 1,000 hectares mirror Gus's blank 95 square kilometers, suggesting if accident in Gus, concealment at home could explain it. The table factors William 3 in 2014, Gus 4 in 2025, both started as yard wander theories fall and hide for William. Accident conceals suspected for Gus, searches vast and fruitless, updates ongoing inquest DNA for William, task force for Gus. Applicability notes Gus might resolve faster without foster layers, but William warns of long hauls if no body. In our quick analysis of what's next for William, the hypothesis sustains the open status over 11 years with 2025 DNA focus and inquest lacking evidence breakthroughs. It implies early family statement digs are crucial if parallel. We'll update on CBI-FBI progress, stick with the channel for more. To fully narrate the stories and events tied to William, one key inquest moment came in 2019 when a neighbor testified seeing the foster mother moving erratically that afternoon, contradicting her homestay claim. Police traced the route to a bush track, searching but finding nothing. Another event was the 2021 wiretap revelation, where the foster mother said, "What if they find out?" interpreted as cover fear, though defense called it out of context. The overturned conviction in May 2025 stemmed from a 2018 incident where she slapped a foster girl for misbehavior, recorded secretly. Appeal won on grounds the recording was illegal, but it painted a picture of strict discipline potentially escalating. The roar sound story evolved, initially a lion roar game, later a car sound, leading experts to question if it masked a fall thud. FBI profilers in 2025 suggested familial involvement high probability, based on statistical child deaths at home. A 2016 theory from DeGary Jubilin pointed to accidental death during play, hidden to protect family unit, echoing 2024 police view. Events like the 2021 raid on the foster home, seizing items for DNA, yielded no matches but intensified scrutiny. The grandmother's 2019 test described William as happy that morning, but noted the balcony as a play spot, fueling the fall idea. No confession has surfaced, with the foster parents maintaining innocence through statements like, "We loved him." But the inquest 2025 sessions may recommend charges if new DNA links emerge from retested suit fibers or hair samples. The cliffhanger. After all, for the final answer to whether Gus Lamont's case will end, and what the boy's fate will be, we list out the details on the environments where these disappearances occurred from the sources, emphasizing the similarities in rural and remote settings that make searches so challenging. In a case which shares so many similarities to the case of Gus Lamont, the case of Sullivan, it happened at Lansdowne Station in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, a wooded rural area with thick bush, close to rivers and trails, about 2 hours' drive from Halifax. The children went missing on May 2, 2025, around 10:00 a.m. from their trailer home, with their mother Malia Brooks Murray calling 911 after she couldn't find them. The search involved cadaver dogs, which failed on October 8, 2025, along with drones and ground teams sweeping the forest, but they came up empty due to dense vegetation and weather conditions like rain and cold that obscured tracks. Similarities with Gus include both being in isolated wilderness areas, Gus in the South Australian outback, the Sullivans in Nova Scotia's wooded region, lacking eyewitnesses, and the environment swallowing up evidence, with bush thickets hiding potential clues. In Sullivan, there were no footprints or clothing items found, much like Gus showing no signs after 95 square kilometers scanned. Evidence comes from the RCMP update on October 8, 2025. Cadaver dogs no hits, area challenging due to terrain. A witness heard a vehicle before on May 1, 2025, but the RCMP disputed it on October 21, 2025, citing no evidence. The comparison table breaks it down for location. The Sullivan case was in wooded rural Nova Scotia at a trailer home, Gus in outback South Australia at a ranch. Searches saw drones and dogs fail due to bush for Sullivan, drones and trackers failed due to thorny bushes for Gus. Risks involved rain and cold hiding traces for Sullivan. Heat and dryness accelerating decomposition for Gus. We outline the details from sources on suspects being family members, motives from family conflicts, and attitudes against wide involvement in the Sullivan case. The main suspects are the mother Malia Brooks Murray, who reported the missing children, and the father Cody Lee Sullivan, who wasn't living with them, but had a custody dispute. Motives revolve around family conflicts, like the custody battle and a history of domestic issues, potentially leading to foul play or hiding the children. Attitudes show the family was reluctant to engage with media or volunteer searches at first, prioritizing privacy. But the RCMP noted uncooperative behavior in some interviews. Similarities with Gus include suspicions of inter-family involvement, Sullivan with custody tensions, Gus with possible family dynamics, and motives from conflicts, like Sullivan's parents' separation mirroring Gus's father concerns about safety. Attitudes align too, with the Sullivan family avoiding early public appeals, similar to Gus's family being stoic with limited media exposure. Evidence includes court documents from October 17, 2025, a witness heard a vehicle the night before, suggesting movement of the children, and RCMP mail on October 21, 2025. No evidence of abduction, but suspicious. The mother claimed, kids playing outside then gone, but neighbors saw no activity. The father had a prior custody battle with motive to potentially hide from authorities. We detail the timelines from sources on when investigations and searches halted in the Sullivan case. Active searches started right away from May 2 to May 10, 2025, with large ground operations, drones, and dogs. They stopped the act as 1 week on May 9, 2025, due to no leads, shifting to investigation mode with occasional checks, like cadaver dogs failing on October 8, 2025. The probe remains open but with low activity after 5 months, focusing on interviews and tips. Similarities with Gus include both halting active searches early, Sullivan after 1 week, Gus after 19 days on October 16, 2025, moving to recovery or investigation due to challenging terrain and no traces. Evidence from the RCMP update on October 8, 2025. No further searches planned, but investigation ongoing. The witness vehicle from the night before was disputed on October 21, 2025, due to no evidence. We summarize the Sullivan case status as still unsolved after 5 months as of October 22, 2025, with no body or leads despite a reward in public tips, and Gus could end up in a similar limbo if no new evidence surfaces, turning into a cold case due to the outback and family dynamics. To narrate the full stories and events related to the Sullivan case, it began on May 2, 2025, when Malaya Brooks Murray called 911 around 10:30 am, saying Lily and Jack had been playing outside the trailer at Lansdowne Station and suddenly vanished. She told dispatchers she searched the yard and nearby woods for 30 minutes before calling, describing Lily in a pink shirt and Jack in blue shorts. RCMP arrived within an hour, setting up a command post and starting ground searches with volunteers from the community. By evening, drones were deployed over the dense forest, and divers checked the nearby river, but heavy rain that day washed away potential tracks. Neighbors reported no unusual activity, though one mentioned hearing a car engine late the previous night on May 1, around 11:00 p.m., which the RCMP initially followed but later dismissed as unrelated after checking vehicle logs showed no matches. The father, Cody Lee Sullivan, was contacted in Halifax, where he lived separately. He drove to the scene but arrived the next day, May 3, and gave a statement saying he had no recent contact due to the ongoing custody dispute, which court records from April 2025 showed he was fighting for weekend visits, citing Malaya's unstable living situation. Tension surfaced when Cody accused Malaya of neglect in interviews, but she countered that he was absent and unreliable. Searches intensified over the week, with cadaver dogs brought in on May 5, but they picked up no scents, attributed to the cold, wet conditions preserving little odor. Volunteers noted the family's reluctance. Malaya stayed inside the trailer mostly, declining to join searches, saying she was too distraught, and Cody left after 2 days, citing work, without participating much. Media appeals were limited. The family released one photo through RCMP on May 4, but no press conference, fostering privacy as the reason, though sources said RCMP found interviews uncooperative, with Malaya changing details about the children's last meal. By May 9, active searches wound down after covering 50 square kilometers with no leads, shifting to tip lines and occasional checks. In August 2025, a tip about a vehicle sighting the night before led to re-interviewing the witness, who described a dark SUV leaving the area, but RCMP email on October 21 confirmed no evidence linking it, disputing the account due to poor visibility. Cadaver dogs were redeployed on October 8 in a targeted forest area based on new tips, but again no hits, with the terrain's thick bush and fallen leaves cited as obstacles. Court documents from October 17 revealed the custody battle details. Cody had filed for full custody in March 2025, alleging Malaya's trailer was unsafe, and she countered with claims of his abandonment. No charges have been filed, but the investigation focuses on family interviews, with RCMP noting suspicious elements like the lack of outdoor play evidence from neighbors. Public tips continue, with a reward posted in June 2025, but after 5 months activity is low, centered on data analysis and waiting for breakthroughs. For Gus, the parallels in environment mean the outback's dry heat could decompose remains faster than Nova Scotia's cold rain preserves them, but both swallow evidence equally. Family attitudes in Sullivan, with limited engagement, echo Gus's stoic approach, potentially signaling reluctance to draw attention. The halt in searches after initial efforts in Sullivan, moving to passive mode, mirrors Gus's shift to recovery after 19 days, suggesting if no leads emerge, Gus heads toward the same unresolved fate as Sullivan's ongoing limbo. In Sullivan, the vehicle witness story unfolded when a local farmer told RCMP on May 3 about hearing an engine and seeing lights, leading to a canvas of roads, but tire tracks were erased by rain, and no CCTV in the rural area confirmed it. The RCMP's October 21 email to media dismissed it as unverified, but it fueled online speculation on forums like Reddit, where users linked it to custody motives, suggesting Cody might have taken the children, though he provided alibis. Malaya's interview transcripts, leaked in part to the Star, showed her saying, "They were right there, then gone." But inconsistencies about whether they had breakfast outside or inside raised flags. Cody's custody filings detailed arguments over living conditions, with him claiming Malaya's trailer lacked safety fences, potentially motivating her to hide an accident. The family's uncooperative note came from RCMP logs, where officers reported short answers and refused polygraphs initially, though they later cooperated minimally. Rewards brought tips like a sighting in Halifax on May 6, but it was a misidentification. As months passed, low activity means occasional forest walks based on tips, similar to how Gus's task force might fade if no body turns up. In the Sullivan narrative, a key event was the October 8 cadaver dog deployment, requested after a tip from a hiker spotting disturbed soil. Dogs searched but found nothing, with RCMP attributing it to wildlife. This echoed earlier failures in May, where dogs circled the trailer but no alerts inside, though forensic teams checked for blood with Lunel finding none. Family dynamics played out in court on October 17, where custody docs revealed Cody threatening to take them away in emails, but no proof. Malaya's attitude shifted by June, giving one interview to CBC saying, "I want them home," but avoiding details. The case is open status after 5 months, with no arrests, highlights how rural isolation and family conflicts can stall probes, a risk for Gus if patterns hold.